Hey there, Alan Matthews here, and in this video we're going to be talking about having a performance mindset in our guitar practices. So instead of getting to a performance situation one day and just hoping for the best, we can actually reverse engineer a performance, the perfect performance in our mind, and then figure out what we need to do to make that a reality. We'll do that in just a second. So when we perform, we go on to a bit of an autopilot. Sure, we have a spike of nerves and everything else, but really what happens is that after that initial spike of adrenaline, we go into whatever we've trained ourselves to do. So if that is to be distracted in our practice, if it's to be loosey-goosey and make a lot of mistakes and then just kind of go back and fix them and not be really clean and consistent, that's what we do. The difference is that whenever we're in a performance situation, we're hyper aware of every little thing, and so we may notice it for the first time. We may notice that chattering mind for the first time, where what we didn't understand is that that's been going on the whole time, and that's exactly what happens in practice. Or we base our idea of what we can do based on the 20th run through of a piece in practice instead of the first. So can I just sit down once and play it, because that's what a performance is. So what we can do then is look at the perfect performance. How do we want to be in that perfect performance, and then how can we practice to make that a reality so that that becomes the default mode. Sure, we still have the spike of adrenaline, we're a little bit shaky, and but maybe a little bit distracted, but whenever everything washes out and when we hit that autopilot and we just go into it just goes, what happens? And that's what we can train in practice. So to begin with, we can look at the number one thing is, are we prepared? Do I know the music, or am I going to get up there and blank out on it? So prepared versus unprepared is the first distinction we can make within our practice. That means that when we're practicing, we can be practicing to eliminate confusion. Prepared means that we've eliminated the confusion. We know exactly what's going to go on. We know where the tricky spots are, and we've worked through those. So that's one of the things that we can do in our practice. Instead of just playing something over and over again, making the same mistakes over and over, or just blanking out and just noodling for a half an hour, we can really take the helm and be prepared. Look for places that might trip us up and then figure out a solution for those places. The second one we can do is focused versus unfocused. We want to be focused. We want our full attention on the task at hand. That means we need to be fully focused in our practices. And this is actually one of the most joy-producing things and the most happiness-producing elements of practicing the classical guitar, is that we can focus in so much, make the world disappear, and it feels good to do this. So in practice, focusing is not so much an act of focusing, it's a more recognizing when we lose focus and then bringing it back. So it's not that we're going to have it and we're just going to keep it. It doesn't really work that way. It's all about how quickly can I recognize that my mind's wandering and bring it back to whatever it is that I'm doing. And we can do that by focusing on specific things. Where are my fingers behind the fret? What does my tone sound like? How is my rhythm? Like each of these, how are my fingers moving through the strings? Little bitty details, we can focus on these. And when our mind wanders to, I wonder what kind of sandwich I'm going to have for lunch, or whatever it is, what's going to happen on Dancing with the Stars, or whatever it is that pops into our heads, then we can instead say, oh, I see that, but I'm back on this. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, because that's what's going to happen in performance. Something's going to catch our attention. Oh, what are they thinking? Oh, not right now. Back to the task at hand. So that's the practice. Ready versus surprised as well is another one. So instead of being surprised by what happens in front of people, I'm surprised that my heart rate rose up and that I couldn't breathe very well, or that my shoulders rose up. Instead, we can be ready for that. We can say, how do I act whenever I get nervous? My shoulders raise. So then you can mentally prepare and say, okay, I'm going to practice like this for a second, and then I'm going to release them. So I'm going to play my piece, I'm going to lift my shoulders, and then I'm going to release them. And you just do it a couple of times so that you've now had the experience of something happening and then doing something about it. And you don't have to practice all the time like this, because then you'll just get into the habit of lifting your shoulders. But once or twice is great, just so that you can say, okay, I've been in this situation before. Mike Tyson's coach, I forget his name now, he had a great quote of, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And this is the exact same way with performance. It's like we can dream of it being perfect, but really what's going to happen is whatever's going to happen. So if we can be prepared and say, okay, I'm going to plan for the worst, expect the worst, then we're not surprised by the worst. The next distinction we can make is owner versus victim. So we can take complete ownership over our experience of it. So that we're not, oh, the light was in my eye and it was too cold in there, and can you believe that person was making that noise? All of that, that's victim talk. Things outside of me had an effect on me. Instead, just completely own it and say, whatever happens is completely on me. I completely own it, and therefore, everything else that we've been talking about. I'm going to practice so that I'm focused. I'm going to practice so that I'm prepared. I know my music. I know what could happen. It's okay. If it does, I accept that. I accept myself. I'm still a good person, even though I broke down in front of people. Whatever it happens to be, not that you would actually do that, but anything that happens, so that we just own the situation completely instead of putting the power on somebody or something else. And lastly, bold versus tentative. So in our practice, we can practice boldly. We can practice loud. We can practice good body posture, powerful body posture, committing to every single note instead of tentatively playing. This goes into ownership as well, and focus and everything else. It's all the same, right? But we can practice being in our person bold, so that whenever we're learning something, we can play it boldly. Whenever we play a piece in practice, we can bring boldness and strength to it, as opposed to tentativeness and shyness and weakness, or whatever it happens to be, regardless of our personality or our particular, I'm an introvert and I don't like to be in front of people, and so, well, that's perfectly fine, but you can still be a bold person. You can still be bold within your practices, and then whenever you get in front of people, you've been practicing being bold bold and confident with your music. So even though you might not feel that way, you'll have a much better chance of faking it if you've been practicing it. So those are a few distinctions, few ways that we can bring a performance mindset into our practices, things that we can do, bring to it so that we're more capable, and we can set ourselves up for better success in sharing our music, which is ultimately a joyful thing, and it's a gift to everyone involved. We just have to get over our silly selves in order to do that, and these are a few ways that we can do that. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.